reacting and sharing a video from my go-to teacher. One of my go-to teachers is Chuck Missler, and he's going to be helping us determine what theory is best to explain the fallen angels of Genesis chapter 6. Is it the Seth theory, where people say that the sons of Seth were the ones who slept with the women of the world, the unbelieving women, and they created these giants and Nephilim, or the angel theory that it was the sons of God, the Benoah Elohim, who came down and had sexual relations with women, and that created the offspring of the giants, and thereby causing God to send the flood. So, of course, I'm with the angel theory that the fallen angels came down and did it. About who were the sons of God, who were the sons of Seth, and could they have created physically and genetically have created an offspring of giants, and could this have caused God to intervene in the acts of humanity? So Chuck Missler is going on to be with the Lord, but his teachings are here on YouTube, and thank God for that. So let's check it out. Get your pen and paper out, and let's learn from one of the great teachers, Chuck Missler.
2 Peter. 1 Peter 3 also has a reference to keep it moving. I'll just take the one in 2 Peter. 2 Peter says, "For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell," and the word he uses, that's the way it's translated in English, it happens to be Tartarus, I'll come back to that, "and delivered them under chains of darkness to be reserved in judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah," and he goes on. Peter echoes the same thing that Jude says, but he adds a couple of insights. He ties it to the days of Noah. These are angels that sinned. Where are they now? They are in a special holding place. They're not in...
I don't understand how people who say that they don't believe in the angel theory. So you think the angels are so holy that they were so rebellious that they could rebel against God and not do this act? Like, what do you think here? And then how do you deal with Jude, and then what Jude says and what Peter says right here, and comparing the sin of the angels with the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah? That's a sexual sin. But anyway,
hell as we think of it, neither Sheol nor Gehenna, someplace else. A place that Peter calls Tartarus. The word Tartarus only appears here in the Greek New Testament. However, we know a lot about the word in the Greek vocabulary. The word Tartarus is a Greek term for a dark abode of woe. It's the pit of darkness of the unseen world. It shows up, for example, in Homer's Iliad, and it's described as being as far below Hades as the earth is below heaven. This is not just a regular place. It's someplace really special.
And God made that for the fallen angels who committed the sexual sin. See, Satan and his fallen angels, they're still free to roam the heavens. They fail, okay, they was kicked out of heaven, and they were fallen angels, but they were not cast down into hell like these angels. Why are these angels cast into Tartarus, into the bottomless pit? You'll see that these angels are the ones that are coming out of Revelation chapter 9, and they're coming out of the bottomless pit after Jesus gives Satan the key to open and let them out. But they're going to be bound again, but that's where they are now.
Now, I want to nail another alternative view down, because many people in this audience, probably, I will not ask for a show of hands, have been taught a different view of this passage, a very commonly taught view. And there are many outstanding, excellent authorities that happen to hold this view. But I no longer believe it's very optional for us. There are many things in the scripture where good men can have different views. But I think it's important for you to consider yourself the viability of the lines of Seth view, because unless you go the other way, there are many other things that I don't think you'll be able to understand. Let me just indulge me, if you will. The lines of Seth view is a view that this word sons of God really refers to the faithful leadership of the Sethites. The daughters of Adam really refers to the daughters of Cain. And they were supposed to be separate. And the sin that's involved is their failure to maintain separation.
The funny thing about that sin of separation was it wasn't even given at that time. God hadn't even ordered a separation of any lines, of any family lines. He didn't say, don't marry the daughters of the world. That was later on during the time of Abraham. But that wasn't even in this time here. So that theory is trash.
There is no really good answers to what the term Nephilim means by this view. That's sort of, frankly, that doesn't have a good response. But that's not elaborated, but that's the essence of the Sethite view, that the sons of God really refers to the good guys, the leadership of the good guys, and they were supposed to stay separate from the Canaanites, but they married the Cainites, the daughters of Cain, and they married and had offspring. Well, there's some problems with this. The text itself, the sons of God, is never used of believers in the Old Testament. People who impute that view are bringing New Testament, misapplying New Testament passages. And by the way, Seth was not God and Cain was not Adam. And I'm not being cute here. I'm saying that's what, in effect, they're imputing to the text. And by the way, there's no mention of the daughters of Elohim. So you got some problems.
So what he's saying is Seth was not God. If they're the sons of God, wouldn't Seth have to be God if they're the sons of Seth? If they're the sons of Seth, Seth would have to be God because they're the sons of Seth, and you're saying that the sons of Seth are the son of God. Well, then Seth would have to be God then, right?
But more important is there is a grammatical antithesis between the sons of God, daughters of men. You see, the structure is clear. In fact, in Psalm 82, it says, "Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes." These antithesis shows up in the Old Testament several places. Also, the line of Seth infers that there's a separation they are supposed to keep, but that's a fallacy because the lines of nations didn't get separated until Genesis 11. We're talking about Genesis 6. This concept of separation was imposed upon Isaac and following, not beforehand. There's no textual basis for that. And by the way, Ishmael was not told to be separate. Don't assume the Arabs today are descendants of Ishmael. We can't prove it. Why? Because Ishmael never kept separate. Small point, but I just thought if there are any Muslims here, I want to have something to offend everyone. I don't want to play favorites. But furthermore, Genesis 6, verse 12 indicts this view because it says all flesh was corrupted. It doesn't say that one particular group was the problem. The line of Seth also implies that, or infers that the line of Seth was godly. Only Enoch and Noah's 8 were spared of the flood. There aren't any godly people there, except those 9.
Yeah, so if Seth was so holy and so godly, and he had these sons of God, why weren't any of his sons spared? Why wasn't he spared? They make out like Seth was just the righteousness of the righteous. But see, it says in his day that men began to profane the name of the Lord. Now, they say in the Bible, it says that then begin men to call upon the name of the Lord. It's not true. That's a misinterpretation. It doesn't say that that's when men begin to call upon the name of the Lord because, Adam walked and called on the name of the Lord. Enoch walked and called on the name of the Lord. Noah walked and called on the name of the Lord. So that's not what they were talking about. The Bible wasn't saying that that's when they learned to pray. No, this is when they begin to defame the name of the Lord in the time of Seth. Also, the text says that the sons of God took wives of all whom they chose. You don't get the impression it was a participative choice. You get the impression they took wives. It doesn't sound like they're too godly in terms of prayer. That may be pushing something. Why did the Sethites, if they're so godly, perish in the flood? That's probably the real nail in that coffin. And by the way, Enosh, who was Seth's son, is the one that initiated defiance of God. Most people don't know this because there's a mistranslation in most of our Bibles. In Genesis 4:25, it doesn't say then man began to call upon the name of the Lord as the English would render it. It really says then man began to profane the name of the Lord in the Targum of Onkelos, the Targum of Jonathan, Kimshi, Rashi, other Jewish, also Christian Jerome, Maimonides in the 12th century. The authorities that, if you really get in behind that verse, you'll discover that our English Bible has a misleading rendering of that. That in the days of Enosh is when apostasy began. And so it's a small point, but it does cloud the idea that the lines of Seth were good guys. The daughters of Cain, the implication of the Cainites were bad guys. Well, first of all, there's no basis for a subset of the daughters of Adam. That's conjecture. The Cainites were not necessarily godless. If you study Cain's genealogy, following Cain in Genesis chapter 4,
you'll discover in verse 18, many of his descendants had the name of God in their names. We don't know, but if you're going to draw a conjecture, it's more likely that even though he was guilty of that sin with Abel, that he repented and he tried to raise his family God-fearing.
Well, this is where I disagree with Mr. Chuck Missler, and he's a great Bible teacher, and I love him. But I don't agree that the Cainite line was godly just because he named his children after God. After all, right? For Satan is Heliel. El, the name El means God, like an angel, Michael, Gabriel. These are named after God, but it doesn't mean that they are all godly. Even in our community, you have these girls that go out and have their babies, and they have the baby out of wedlock, and they name the baby Mercy and Precious, Heavenly. And they name all the, and they had the baby in rebellion. And one thing you'll also discover about Cain is that he does not have a mark of days. Noah, every one of them have a 3-letter number after their name. Noah lived for 100 and so many years. He lived for 670 years. You have Methuselah, who lived for 969 years. But you see with Cain, he does not have a number. His number is going to come at the end of the world with the mark of the beast. And it will also include 3 numbers, 666. But that's just me. That's just me. And I'll teach on that stuff at another time.
This idea that Sethites were good guys and the Cainites were bad guys is a contrivance of liberal scholarship, not of the text. And by the way, were the daughters of Seth so unattractive? I don't quite understand. But the other issue is these unnatural offspring as a result of the union. What are these Nephilim? Now, they had supernatural offspring. Now, by the way, when a believer or an unbeliever gets married, they may have monsters, but they don't have, unnatural offspring. And also it implies that there were no X chromosomes among the Sethites. There were no women of renown, only men of renown. And why was Noah's genealogy so distinctively highlighted in Genesis 6:9?
Correct.
Now, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, as I pointed,
the Bible really took time to make a special note that Noah was perfect, not morally perfect, but he was genetically perfect. He had perfect human DNA. That was a marker that the Holy Spirit wanted us to really take note of. All right, that's very important.
Out in Jude 6 and 7, 1 Peter 3:19 and 20, and 2 Peter 2 verses 4 and 5. Even the unique use of the Greek term is fascinating. The New Testament seems to very clearly corroborate what I'll call the angel view of Genesis 6. So let me just summarize. We've got a problem with the text itself. We've got inferred separation, inferred godliness of Sethites, inferred Canaanite subset, unnatural offspring, New Testament confirmations. These are the major, in my mind, indictments of the so-called lines of Seth view, although it's held by many. But here's the thing that may surprise you. There's also post-flood events in the Old Testament and prophetic issues that you will be blind to if you adhere to the line of Seth view. Let's explore some of these. By the way, the angel view prior to the birth of Christ was in the traditional rabbinical literature, Book of Enoch, as I mentioned earlier, the testimony of the 12 patriarchs. It's not a member of the canon, but it does describe the linguistic structure of that day. Josephus Flavius, Septuagint. The early church fathers, Josephus Flavius.
I haven't read the testimony. I haven't read testimony of the 12 patriots and Josephus. I tried to read that, but it was so much, and the letters were so small. I really couldn't get into it. Eventually, I do plan on reading it. And the Septuagint, I dabbled in that just a little, but not like deep study. The Book of Enoch, I have gone through that, just volume 1. I don't trust the other ones after that one.
Septuagint. The early church fathers, Philo of Alexandria, Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, and the whole list, held the angel view. The early church believed in angels. Then where did the line of Seth idea begin in the 5th century? Celsus and Julian the Apostate used the traditional belief in angels to attack Christianity. And Julius Africanus resorted to the Sethite theory as sort of a more comfortable explanation. They were uncomfortable with the angel idea, and understandably. As we look at that, it's pretty weird. Mm-hmm. Cyril Alexander used the line of Seth to repudiate the Orthodox position, and here's the problem. Augustine picked it up, and he embraced the Sethite theory, and it became the doctrine of the Catholic Church, and thus it still derives to the denominational churches, and it prevailed, of course, as the dominant view into the Middle Ages. Modern scholarship, and I just picked a few, Pember, DeHaan, McIntosh, Delitzsch, Gaebelin, Arthur Pink, Donald Gray.
I'm an avid reader of C.H. McIntosh, the commentary, the theologian from back in the day. Great, excellent theologian. And one time I had jury duty, and I was like 19 years old, and I had his commentary, C.H. McIntosh, and I took that with me, and I enjoyed it. But you know what? I do not see where he believed in the angelic theory. Now, I don't know where Chuck Missler got that from to include him in this list, but I happen to not find it. I mean, you can look it up and let me know if you find that, but I didn't see that.
House, Henry Morris, Merrill Unger, Arnold Fruchtenbaum, of course, Hal Lindsey and Chuck Smith, as more recent well-known examples, are angel view people. If you've read Henry Morris's definitive commentary on the Book of Genesis, he, of course, goes into all this for us.
Well, that does it, folks. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it causes you to study more. I mean, I'm not trying to force you to see things my way. Actually, I like it when people disagree with me, and it helps me to study and it helps me to go further into it. So if you see something in this that you disagree with or even agree with, would you like to leave a comment? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'm on my way to 1,000 subs on this new channel, and want to keep it growing. Thank you, and God bless.